Beginning in the late 1800s, the United States experienced a series of oil booms. Town by town, the oil booms moved throughout the country, until finally in the 1920s, the oil fever reached Oklahoma. The 1920s Oklahoma oil boom has affected the United States oil production forever. It all began with Edwin L. Drake, a successful man of business. He had changed the world by drilling the first successful oil well in Pennsylvania. After his discovery, people's lives and their way of living would change dramatically. The 1920s Oklahoma oil boom. Black gold that changed America. Oil was considered big business by the end of World War I. Oil was extremely valuable, so many people were eager to get their hands on it. Many things increased oil production back in the day. Europe wanted oil from the US, and automobiles were dependent on gas fuels, which included oil and petroleum. More and more oil was drilled up until 1920. 34,000 wells of oil were drilled in the United States. Because so many barrels were drilled, the number of automobiles increased from an already large number to an extraordinary amount. By the end of the 1920s, the number of oil barrels produced in Oklahoma exceeded 251 million. Little did they know it would make the economy of Oklahoma strong and prosperous for the days to come. Tulsa was exponential in the search for oil in Oklahoma. It was the first place people found oil in Oklahoma. It began in an area west of Tulsa called Red Fork. It was the first city to have an oil gusher. Glenpool, however, was the name of the first oil field and had the very first successful oil well in Oklahoma. One reason why the discovery at Glenpool was significant is because it lured many major oil companies and oil operators to Oklahoma. One of the first regions in Oklahoma to be drilled for oil was in what is now Osage County. Early in the 1900s, the Phoenix Oil Company and the Osage Oil Company joined together to form the Indian Territory Illuminating Oil Company. Oil brought many opportunities for people and the economy. The Indian Territory was a good spot to drill for oil in the 1920s. There was a lot of land in the Indian Territory. There is so much open land and space to drill for oil, so that two men by the names of George B. Keeler and Jasper Exedine were herding cattle in Osage County when they came upon a small body of water and their cattle refused to drink. They went to take a closer look and saw a strange black liquid on the top of the water. Indeed, it was oil. They had struck oil from a body of water. Oklahoma City was another major contributor to Oklahoma's success. Oklahoma City was a city that became fully populated. It has also become our state capital. Oil provided a significant amount of wealth to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City began on a northern edge of a county called Payne County. In 1890, the population of Oklahoma City was at about 12,000 people. Oil caught the eye for many people in the area, and they would soon find out that Oklahoma City was the place to go. With the city having the money from the oil boom, they could set up new businesses, set up schools for the children, and continue to develop for the city. With more businesses popping up, it would make people even more eager to move to the area. It created opportunities for the people who needed someone or something to help them. Oil brought those opportunities of wealth. Years passed by and more people began to drill for oil wells. But it turned out that the city was looking pretty dry. In the time to come, Oklahoma City would produce 65% of the state's oil. The number of wells drilled was incredible. It had gone up to 1,500 wells of oil. Then, the city boomed in the years afterwards. They had produced more than 700 million barrels of oil. At one point, the oil field in Oklahoma was a major producing factor in the United States. Oklahoma City has truly become one of the most prosperous cities in the state of Oklahoma. Ponca City was a place in the state of Oklahoma that many people have never heard of. However, Ponca City was an extremely important part of the 1920s Oklahoma oil boom. A brilliant man named E.W. Marland was a superior figure in Ponca City. Marland was a brilliant man. When Marland first came to Oklahoma, he drilled 7 straight dry holes, and things did not look good for him. Then, he struck oil, and began to succeed greatly. He planned to drill for oil near the 101 Ranch in Ponca City. This plan was genius. Marland quickly became a very well-known oilman throughout the United States. As Marland became more and more successful, he began to create many small oil companies. Then, he merged all of these companies to form the Marland Continental Oil Company. E.W. Marland alone made Ponca City an unforgettable part of the 1920s Oklahoma oil boom. Before he died, he made this quote: "Everybody should have the thrill that comes to a wildcat, who after working on a well day after day and night after night, finally brings in a gusher." Life in the oil fields was not a very good experience. It was tough. Every man was put into the fields and worked vigorously day and night. The men earned low wages, and being in the oil fields was very dangerous. There were many risks being in the oil fields. People earned wages that were unfair and not enough to support their families. In some cases, the wives of the men would take the children and move away because of the situation. Then, the men would have to follow. That caused many problems for the oil fields. They didn't have enough men to work out on the fields. In order to have more field workers, the businessmen brought in more and more men to work out on the fields. Every toilet was outside, and disease spread throughout the camps. So many people died. Fires were also a major problem in the oil fields. They could last for 3 to 4 days. It was a major problem. The fires could spread through the fields and make them unworkable. Explosions were another risk in the fields. Those were deadly and dangerous. As you can tell, it took brave people to be oil field workers back in the day. Oil in Oklahoma played a major role to everything in Oklahoma. It has been the building blocks for our state's development, and it will continue to be for the days to come. Many oil companies have evolved throughout Oklahoma and in the United States. There are so many of them in Oklahoma, and we are very dependent on them for various reasons. They are the source of how most people get to work or school every day. Oil creates thousands of jobs to people every day, and they are the source of most energy that is used to heat homes. And those are just only a couple of reasons why oil companies are important. Oklahoma has become one of the highest oil producing states in the United States. Oil will always be a part of our lives and to many other people as well.